What's this about you being fur coat and no Christmas knickers?
No Christmas knickers. Well, this is... I will say it wasn't fur. It was a sheepskin coat. So I was Christmas shopping with my husband when the twins were about 1, and we'd gone up to London for a couple of nights without children, just so we could sleep, really, but also shop for Christmas gifts. And like all good Christmas shopping, I ended up buying lots for myself and nothing for anyone else.
Good work.
Including this big sheepskin coat. I mean, it was massive and it was very expensive, and I felt very bad, but really for the sheep and for everyone I was supposed to be buying Christmas gifts for and hadn't, all those reasons. And then we went to sleep in our hotel in Kensington, racked with guilt, but looking forward to a full night's sleep without any babies waking up was going to be great. And the fire alarm went off, so that scuppered that. And I was very pleased I bought the sheepskin coat, because I ended up on the street, -2, in knickers and a fur coat, really. And we were there for about an hour or so. I mean, it was... Generally, it looked like no one was getting back in this hotel. The fire alarm was there, you know, everybody there. And I made friends with this woman who I just had a connection with immediately. She was a really bright northern woman, chatting away, and we were like, there must be more to life than standing out here in our knickers and fur coats. Where should we go? And found a sister hotel down the road that was putting on teas and coffees for all the stranded people, or those that knew about it, which wasn't many.
So it wasn't a test, then? It was a real fire alarm?
It was a real fire alarm. There was a real fire, and they'd said, look, you're not going back in for another couple of hours, really. No. Thank goodness for the sheepskin coat.
Yeah.
But got chatting to this lady, and we went down the road to this little sister hotel, and by then I thought, well, you know what? I'm not getting this night's sleep.
I'm going to lose this coat.
I'm going to lose this coat. I'm going to dance on the table. Christmas! No, we were chatting. We were getting on so well. I said, look, we're up now. Why don't we get a bottle of champagne and, you know, settle in for the night in our knickers? I'll keep the coat on, because I don't want anyone to get too upset. So we started having a few drinks, and then halfway through this, she went... My son's still in the hotel, you know. I said, what? What? There is a fire. You know there is an actual fire. She went, yes, I know, but I did say to him, you know, there's a fire alarm, we want to get out. He works here all the time. He said, I'm not moving, Mum. The fire alarm's always going off. I'm going nowhere. I want some sleep. I said, all right, what did your son do that he's here all the time? She said, he's a comedian. Jason Manford. So, unbeknownst, I sat having a few drinks at 2 in the morning in my knickers with Jason's mum, and we got on like a house on fire.
And you burned to death.
And you burned to death.
No, I remember that night, yeah. I was doing some gig, and basically, James Corden was supposed to do a charity gig at, like, Harrods or something like that, and 2 days before, something had happened, he couldn't do it. They were ringing round, panicking, and I'm on some list of people who were available. So I said, all right, I'll do it. Anyway, it was a gig, and Gary Barlow was there, so I thought, I'll invite him.
That James Corden turned down tonight, actually.
Hold on! Never get any of his good jobs. So I did the gig, and it was with Gary Barlow, and so I invited my mum, because she's a big Gary Barlow fan, and she spent the night embarrassing me, because she does that. I mean, I love her to bits, but she is, you know, when she met Gary Barlow, she went, what are you doing in August? And he went, I don't know. He said, it's just that we're having a party, and she has that, she's not bothered at all. She'll ask anyone for anything. And, you know, she was like, it was a dead posh food. She's like, what's this? I was like, oh, it's some salmon mousse. She was proper like Peter Kay's dad, like, salmon, mousse, together. And then we went and stayed at the hotel, and I did used to stay there quite a lot, because everything was, you know, BBC was in the West London stuff. So, and then the fire alarm would go off every Thursday night. It would go off where they go, well, it's not a real fire alarm. It's not a real fire. It's just a practice. You go, well, I'm only staying here tonight, so why am I practising?
Yeah.
I need to know where your fire point is.
It's very worrying culturally that no one believes... Yeah. It's like the police don't believe burglar alarms, do they? If you ring them and say there's a burglar alarm going off, they go, yeah, whatever, we're not coming for that.
Someone said once that what they should do is replace car alarms with a couple arguing. Because everyone looks out the window if someone's arguing.
It's true.
If someone breaks in your car, you go, fuck off!
You bastard! I told you not to see it again!
She's a slag!
What's going on here? What's going on here?
You would.
That's very good. good idea.
Get on Dragon's Den with that.
Yeah.
I remember that night in that hotel. What I do remember about staying in that hotel.
We weren't together. I just want to add that Jason and I weren't in the same bed when this happened.
I was also in fur coat and knickers, but by myself. No, but I remember that it was one of those gigs where they went. It was afterwards. I was starving because all the food was this salmon mousse and bullshit, and London, and I remember ordering so much food because there was like 2 or 3 things on the menu that I thought, oh, I quite fancy that. Oh, but I wonder if it'll be nice. No, do you know what? I'm just going to order both of them because it'll be fine. And I ordered so much food that I had to pretend there was someone else in the room with me. I was actually on the phone going, and do you want the pasta as well? I want to have the pasta. Yeah, should I have the cheesecake? I'm thinking, oh, I've got away with it. And then only about 20 minutes later thinking, well, he's got to come up. He's got to come up to the room and he's going to see that I'm by myself. So about 5 minutes before he got there, I ran the shower and shut the bathroom door. Like I did a full...
You did this,
I went for it, yeah. And when he come in, I was like, dinner's here, like nobody in there at all. He was like he laid 2 sides of the table, poured 2 drinks. I was like, and when I finished my dinner, I just turned it round and I just carried on with the other one.
That's taking secret eating to a whole other level, isn't it?
I've got a problem.
I've got... Midway through that story, I realised this wasn't the night that the fire was happening in the same hotel. I thought you were just doing that whilst there was a fire going on.
Yeah. Woo!
It's Jason's food order started a fire in the kitchens.
I don't care if there's a fire.
Now, Richard, how did the baby Jesus come to be in your possession in the first place?
Well, this was awkward, but we have an outdoor crib scene which goes up just before Christmas. It's a lovely thing, traditional, been there for years and years. It's lit up and people can walk past and stop and admire our lovely crib scene with the baby Jesus, which is 100 years old, there in the crib. So one year, just before Christmas, there was a whole crowd of people outside, and I went along, and I thought, lovely, the magic of the Christmas story, and they were all crowding in and looking, and there was a good feeling. And I looked in and found out that someone had taken the baby Jesus out of the crib and put in a velociraptor instead.
Did you get him back?
In the end, I had to borrow from Mrs. Dolben up the hill a little Capo di Monte figure, but it was a matador. So we had a matador in the baby Jesus crib instead. But we kind of did a cushion around him because you couldn't see his hat or the blood stains or anything. So it worked out all right.
But he's lost forever now, the baby Jesus.
Whoever had the baby Jesus, well, you know, we're down a baby Jesus, but we're up a velociraptor, so, you know, all is not
Every
lost.
cloud.
But it happens a lot now, is that the sort of cultural reference points have got a bit obscure now. We had a nativity, we have a living nativity in church, which the children come and do. And I went up to do my thing and I discovered that the 3 kings were there. We had Caspar, Balthazar and Darth Vader. As Charlie had kind of got the brief wrong, and then he poked Mary with a lightsaber, which is not really, strictly speaking, part of the Christmas narrative. But we busked it, it was fine.
And this is going to sound like a silly question, but is it a special time for you?
Oh, it's a very special time for...
I mean, Christmas Day, I mean, no, Jesus wasn't born on Christmas Day, was he? Do you know when he was? And you know all these things, I know you do.
Well, it's all a bit obscure, but the first vicar I ever worked for, he was lovely Christmas morning, and he'd smile and everything, and he'd lock up, and then he'd go back to the vicarage. He put on his pyjamas, took a bottle of vodka and went and watched The Sound of Music. That's good preparation for a clergyman's Christmas. Because, you know, actually, after you've done 30 carol services...
Right.
Yeah.
You know? You're ready for The Sound of Music.
That's what I wonder. I wonder if you're really thinking... Oh, no. Everyone's going to come and they're all going to be insincere.
Is it annoying for you? Because
it's the busiest
the only way I can sort of compare it is I play tennis at the local tennis club, and during Wimbledon, it's hammered.
Yeah. With
all these people who, like, don't really play tennis, but because Wimbledon's on, they've come to play tennis. At Christmas, you get all those people who, they're not really Christian, because it's Christmas, they think, I better turn up. You know what I mean?
Play tennis in the church, why not?
It's somewhere to go for a fight after the pub, so, you know, people come.
Has anyone kicked off during a service?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Brilliant.
They've had a fight at the back.
I'm going to start going.
Yeah. And my favourite one is fainters on Christmas morning. So you get... It's after the pub, midnight mass, people come to... I'm always delighted to see anyone, not bothered why, as long as they leave the lead on the roof, that's good.
Good prerequisite, that.
That's just one thing. You set the bar low.
Yeah, you're not...
the worst one was it was before I was doing this, and I went to midnight mass at a cathedral. I won't say where. And anyway, it was nice. All the priests at the cathedral, some of them very old, came out. Everyone gathered around the altar. It was lovely. And then one of them had to go, so he left the altar and went off to the vestry without switching off his microphone.
Classic.
And we were gathered round the altar, and the words institution happened. Then you just heard this. I don't know, obviously he'd just overdone his Christmas dinner, and there was just terrible un-Christmassy sounds echoed around this cathedral. It was really awful. And we did our best to sing over it, but Silent Night was not a good choice. And then the worst thing was, he came back in again. And so there he was sort of at the altar and couldn't understand, everyone was sitting there going...
Where does 12 Days of Christmas come from? Why?
Well, it's because but the Christmas was a whole festival that went from Christmas Eve to the Feast of the Epiphany, which is January the 6th. So it's 12 days, but that's all got a bit lost in the sort of...
So the kind of artificial thing from...
Well, no, because Christmas, because now it's a commercial thing, begins in... Yeah, about then, doesn't it? And then it's sort of... It peaks at sort of Christmas 12th,
Eve.
I think. Earlier and earlier every year.
We did a QI Christmas special in March, right?
I did
Easter.
I did it when I was in the band. We did a Christmas special with Billy Connolly that we filmed in July, and so we were all surrounded by Christmas trees and kind of singing carols, and came out and it was sort of a heat wave, and kind of cracked ground underneath our feet, and everyone in sandals. Weird.
We should, for the sake of people who don't know, say which band you're referring to.
What was it again, love?
It was called The Communards,
That's the one.
Wasn't it?
Yes, a long time ago.
With Jimmy,
yeah.
with Jimmy something.
Yes, previous incarnation.
In your your double
That's
double
my
life almost.
No, triple. I think.
Triple life.
Yeah.
Is there a middle life between the Communards?
Well, then I was working for BBC Radio, but that's the equivalent of death. So that didn't really count.
And is it changed in the 10 years you've been doing it? Are the numbers up or down?
We're doing OK. We're doing OK. We're doing all right. No, generally it's a sort of plummeting towards utter irrelevance, but, you know.
And do you believe or do you have doubts?
Yeah, I do believe, actually. Yeah, I do. I have doubts about, you know, whether I want to continue subscribing to BT Vision, but not about, you know, the important things.
We don't shop in Iceland. Just to clarify, don't want that going out on television.